What's up everyone, MK Tom Brady here. So in this video, I want to talk about the We Play Pro MK11 tournament. Group A was yesterday, Group B is today. So after Group B, then we move into the top 8, but a lot of people are talking about the character usage rate, like how many characters are being picked and who these characters are. And they're also speculating what the total count will be once we get through the top 8, Group B, etc. So as of right now, here are the usage. Now, obviously, there are mains of these characters, so, and the Group B hasn't happened yet, so people are speculating what it's going to look like, because Group B is going to have a lot of Cetrion, a lot of Jackie, a lot of Fujin. It's also going to have a decent amount of Joker in it. So as of right now, we have Sub-Zero picked 18 times, Cetrion at 9, Jackie 5, Fujin 5, Joker 5. These are the notable, considered top tier characters. Johnny Cage is up there now. Obviously, Shang had a Shang Tsung main in it in Group A. Sub-Zero had a Sub-Zero main, but there are a lot of people who also use Sub-Zero on the side, which only goes to show what pretty much everyone knows. Sub-Zero is the most user-friendly character in the game, which is why he's so commonly used in these situations. But when you project these numbers forward, because today is Cetrion and Jackie Day, Cetrion, Jackie, and Fujin as well today. These characters are probably going to be in the 20s and 30s of overall character selections by the time we get through the top 8, as well as Sub-Zero. So characters picked 20, 30, or 40 times will be Sub-Zero, Cetrion, Jackie, Fujin, and Joker. Overall, these characters will be picked the most. I would say those 5 characters will be picked at least 20 more times than any other character. So, of course, people look at that list. They say, well, Sub-Zero, Cetrion, Jackie, Fujin, Joker. I mean, these are some of the top 7 characters in the game. And again, the talk of balance patch, when's it coming, etc. starts being called into question. So there are some people who always say, Tom, look, you're crazy when you say we're not getting anything. We're getting something. Now, most people have said at least they think they're going to reslot the moves. Like, yeah, make everything one slot. And they'll probably do a little something with the custom moves and the abandoned moves and then unban them. This is what people think, right? But, okay, let me just say, you guys, I know, do not allow me to talk about Sub-Zero. So let me just say, this is not about Sub-Zero per se. I am only using him as the example. So for the majority of the community who forbids me to talk about Sub-Zero, please forgive me, but I am only using him as the example here because he makes the best example of this. But I'd say about 30% of the game fall into this category, but Sub-Zero is the best example of this. So let's just say they go the route of make everything one slot. That's ridiculous. You have an overhead, deep freeze, and then you would throw in rising ice here, right? Which also one slot. And then you would throw in creeping ice, also one slot. So he would have the ability to do a safe overhead with creeping ice, but when he hits you, he could use the combination of deep freeze and rising ice to do B&B combos that are 60 and 70%. He'd be doing fatal blows, combos that are around 80% in the corner. It's absolutely ridiculous the damage potential that this character would have with those 2 moves, and also the ability to make his mix safe when you want to take less risk with creeping ice. And deep freeze also does great from range. It hits mid, it's fast, it destroys projectiles. You can't have an overhead and allow this combination of 3. Then when it comes to, unbanning moves or whatever, take ground ice. Let's just say they kept everything as it is and just unban the moves. You combine ground ice with rising ice. Now, ground ice right now, just by itself, is completely useless with the new wake-up frames. However, if you combine ground ice and rising ice, the times in which somebody has either no offensive or no defensive meter, because you need a bar of each to get out of this, when you find yourself in that situation, if you combine this with an overhead combo starter, be it rising ice or if they made everything one slot, deep freeze, you would then have a vortex situation where if you found yourself in this situation without those resources, he would loop this for eternity off both an overhead and a low, and essentially you could get hit once and lose your entire life bar, and that would be the end of the game. You would be vortexed, you'd have no options, and the match would be over. So reslotting doesn't work, making unbanning moves doesn't work. Even if they made everything one slot, say you had ground ice and Arctic Trap, in the same variation, they're all kind of crappy moves because they're all minus 100 million bazillion. But in the rare situation where you did get Arctic Trap up while somebody was trapped, then you have an unblockable, so they can't jump forward because you have Arctic Trap placed properly. But they can't jump up because they're landing on an unblockable. So they just can't move, and they're just guaranteed dead. And you also have a 50-50 that you're ramming out behind these situations. Sub-Zero just creates a crazy scenario in which to have these moves, and his overhead, like as long as he has an overhead, he can't even have any of these moves one slot. He can't have some of these moves more usable. He can't have a move unbanned and more usable. It's just not possible. Also, even if they found some way to kind of tweak some of this stuff and kept his overhead, he would have, like, as things are, let's say they want to make things a little better or more usable, but not as over the top, you'd still have too many, like, restrictions. You would have a conflict with every other move would conflict with every other move. So here you'd have Sub-Zero where you can't use his, basically every move wouldn't be used with every other one. And so really to make him work, you'd have to pretty much redesign him. Redesign him, either get rid of his overhead, change his move properties. Like to make Sub-Zero in that make everything one slot, unban these moves, the character would require a complete overhaul, because right now nothing could work with almost anything, and certainly most things don't work with his overhead. So Sub-Zero is kind of bricked, and we have a lot of characters right now in what people think is going to happen are completely bricked. You can't use that. So again, my apologies for talking about Sub-Zero, but I wasn't trying to make it a Sub-Zero thing. I was just basically saying, like, he represents the best example of this. There are several characters that fit into this category where right now, by this pie in the sky dream that we're going to, because I have a co-host on a podcast who believes by some miracle they're going to unban these moves, make everything one slot, and this is just pie in the sky. Like, it can't possibly work, right? But here's what can work. They can take all the most used top characters, even Sub-Zero, Cetrion, Jackie, Fujin. Some people will throw Liu Kang in there, Joker. They can take these top characters, whatever they want to do, or even just the top 3 or 4 or 5, and just take them and just nerf them into the ground. Shiva Chu, why not throw in there? They can nerf everything into the ground, make everybody Shao Kahn tier. That's what they can do. What they cannot do is do anything that requires an overhaul. And because about 30% of the cast are in this category, it's just too much work at this point in the game. So this imaginary overhaul where they're, or these imaginary changes where they're making everything one slot and doing this or that, that is impossible. Even just making everything one slot without even factoring in the unbanned moves is impossible for a character like Sub-Zero, and it's the same for about 30% of the cast as well. And yeah, so obviously we're going to keep an eye on the character usage, but we know today is going to be a billion Cetrions, a billion Jackies. This is going to be like a billion Fujin picks today, and these character numbers are going to dwarf the rest of the cast. So the only thing feasible is NRS when it comes to, we can't do this without overhauling a lot of, not a lot, but about 30% of the cast. So what are we going to do? Overhaul some of these characters? No. But we can nerf everybody down to Shao Kahn, and at most, that's what we're going to get. A massive nerf in which everybody gets nerfed all the way down to the same tier, and maybe a couple of DLC characters. But, I'll be monitoring the, people are monitoring the, people are tweeting the character usage stat. That's how I got them. So we'll keep an eye on this, but we're pretty sure we know where this is going to go. But yeah, this is the reason why, they're not going to do any type of balance patch, because the only thing they can do is nerf. They can't change anything because they can't reslot moves. They can't do any of this stuff because it just causes a huge conundrum in the game. Because then people are going to say, why does this character get reslotted and not that? And it just doesn't work. The custom system had great potential. It could have been great, but overall, it was just way too rushed. And we're seeing the proof of that. It's rushed to the point where it is now at a point where without some type of an overhaul, it cannot be fixed. And since we know an overhaul is not going to happen, this is where we are. So, as usual, I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say in the comments. I'll be watching. Of course, we can't restream it, but I'll be maybe doing like a conversation stream where I'm on Discord talking with people or whatever. So if you want, tune into that on stream. Otherwise, go ahead and enjoy the tournament today and for the rest of the weekend. Thanks so much for supporting all my content. I really, really appreciate it. And stay tuned for more content coming soon.